The moment I signed Harper Vance on that irretrievable separation agreement inside the penthouse on Manhattan's Central Park West, it was so quiet that only the faint white noise spraying from the humidifier could be heard. This apartment is worth $45 million, boasting floor-to-ceiling windows that overlook the entire park and floors of imported Italian marble, as cold and hard as a morgue slab. Lying beside it was another document, a surgical bill from Mount Sinai Hospital, a D&C procedure for a miscarriage, dated yesterday. My abdomen was still throbbing faintly, physiological pain caused by uterine contractions, but compared to that hollow void in my heart, this counted for nothing. My husband, Preston Sterling, the sole heir to the old Wall Street family Sterling Trust, was at this very moment dominating page 6 of the New York Post and the trending topics on Instagram. The headline was as blinding as the midday sun. Sterling Group heir and returning socialite, Chole Kensington spotted at JFK Airport, old flame rekindled. In the photo, Preston was wearing that Loro Piana Vicuña coat I just ordered for him from Milan last week, carefully shielding Chloe as she got into the car. Chloe was wearing the latest season's Chanel haute couture, as delicate as a white rose needing a greenhouse, looking nothing like the prodigal daughter who just caused her family trust fund to lose tens of millions of dollars in Europe and was now urgently looking for a sucker to bail her out. This is the endgame of my 7-year marriage. I graduated from Yale Law School, gave up the golden resume of a Supreme Court clerkship, and used scalpel-like precision to help Preston clean up the messy accounts in his massive business empire, forcefully turning him from a third-generation rich kid who only knew how to spend money and couldn't even read financial statements into the so-called business wizard on the cover of Forbes. What I got in return was me lying on a cold operating table, tears streaming as I stared at the surgical light, while he was rushing out of the house because of a call from Chloe saying, "I'm scared of the dark, I can't get a cab here. Harper, don't be unreasonable." That was the last thing he said to me before leaving. "Chloe just got back to the country. She has anxiety. You're a lawyer, you're strong, take a cab to the hospital yourself." Strong. Those 2 words were nailed onto me like spikes. Just because I'm strong, I deserve to bear the pain of a miscarriage alone. Just because she's fragile, she deserved to get my husband's care. Suddenly, a loud bang. The fingerprint lock let out a wail, and the heavy bulletproof entrance door was violently pushed open. It wasn't Preston. When he came back, he always brought that suffocating elegance and a faint scent of sandalwood cologne. What barged in this time was a biting cold wind mixed with the smell of pine, dish soap, and cheap but reassuring peppermint candy. A woman wearing a heavy Carhartt work jacket, a bright yellow Green Bay Packers beanie, and slush-covered non-slip boots swept in like a Midwestern tornado. She was lugging 2 huge Costco shopping bags, her cheeks flushed red from the cold wind outside, but her gaze was even colder than the New York outside the window at this very moment. It's my mom, Barbara "Barb" Vance, the most hardcore woman in Wisconsin. She didn't even look at this minimalist-style mansion, nor did she cast a glance at that priceless Basquiat painting on the wall. She kicked that expensive Italian minimalist sculpture blocking the way straight aside. "Oh, coming through!" She strode over to the sofa, looking at me, pale-faced and like a broken porcelain doll. My eyes uncontrollably reddened. "Mom!" Barb didn't say a word. Her large hands, roughened by years of housework and working at the hardware store, grabbed my icy hand, warm, rough, yet full of vitality. "Let's go, Harper. Mom's taking you home." My tears were just about to fall in this space filled with the smell of disinfectant and a sense of betrayal. My mom Barb threw a heavy down jacket right over my head, blocking my view and also blocking my weakness. "Count to 3. Suck those tears back in." "Hold your horses." Barb's voice was booming, carrying a thick Midwestern accent. "What are you crying for? Shedding tears for that wimp who only knows how to use hairspray but can't change a light bulb? That's a waste of salt, not worth it. Save your strength to go home and eat meat. I took a deep breath, closing my eyes in the darkness. When I opened them again, my gaze was completely clear. I pulled that Tiffany six-pronged diamond ring off my ring finger. This ring was once a promise I treasured, but looking at it now, it's nothing but an expensive shackle. I threw it onto the coffee table next to the abortion papers. The ring hit the marble tabletop, making a crisp sound like some kind of death knell. "Mom, let's go." Barb nodded with satisfaction, and like she was hefting a sack of potatoes, she scooped up my Rimowa suitcase with one hand and dragged me toward the elevator with the other. "Stop dawdling. If we don't leave now, we'll hit the evening rush at the Lincoln Tunnel, and we still have to rush to LaGuardia Airport. Tonight, I'm going to have you eating piping hot tater-tot hot dish. You can't find any proper cheese in this hellhole. It's all that moldy blue cheese. Is that even for humans?" The moment the elevator doors closed, I took one last look at this place I'd lived for 7 years. Goodbye, Preston Sterling. Goodbye to the Harper Vance who lived like a precision instrument just to measure up to a wealthy family. In the Delta first-class cabin heading to Milwaukee, the air pressure is steady, but my mom Barb clearly isn't. She's asking the flight attendant for a third bag of pretzels, while loudly complaining about the unreasonable seat design on this plane. "You know what, honey," she said to the flight attendant, maintaining a professional smile. "Back in Wisconsin, this isn't called a first-class seat. It's called a torture device. It's not even as roomy as the passenger seat of my Ford pickup." The flight attendant smiled awkwardly and gave her 2 extra packs of nuts. I leaned against the window, wearing sunglasses, clutching my phone tightly in my hand. For the past 3 months, I've been like a tightrope walker. Chloe Kensington returned bearing the title of European Socialite. Like a drop of poison dripped into my marriage. Preston is a typical WASP. He received the best education and behaves appropriately. But that arrogance in his bones and the desire for possession are carved into his genes. Chloe is the regret of his youth, the perfect doll recognized by his social class. And I am his most useful tool, his brain, his legal advisor, his weapon against that stuffy board of directors. He wants that doll to put on display in a window, and he wants me, this sharp sword, to conquer new territories for him. How greedy. "Mom," my voice hoarse, I finally asked the question hovering in my heart. Am I really a failure? I was top of my class at Yale Law. I'm a top New York M&A lawyer. I helped him make countless amounts of money. And yet, I lost to a woman who can't even read a balance sheet and only knows how to max out credit cards. Barb's hand paused while tearing open a package of nuts. She turned her head and slapped my thigh hard. "Ow!" I nearly jumped out of my chair from the pain. "Harper Vance, I think your brain has been clogged up by all that expensive caviar and champagne." Barb glared at me, her eyes filled with exasperated fury. "You call that losing? That was cutting your losses." Barb pulled a can of Miller Lite that somehow made it through security out of her treasure chest-like bag. That was the taste of Wisconsin, the taste of home. In our neck of the woods, there's an old saying, if your car gets stuck in a cow dung pit, you won't be afraid to hit the gas to get out just because it's a Mercedes. That, Preston, is just a gold-plated mud pit. You've climbed out now. That's called a strategic retreat. It's a victory. She paused, her tone softening a bit. Besides, I've seen photos of that Chloe, a face full of hyaluronic acid. Only that blind Preston would treat her like a treasure. Back home, a woman like that would be considered too soft to even milk a cow. Just then, a burst of ear-piercing laughter came from the next seat. A Gen Z girl with dyed pink hair and wearing giant headphones was scrolling through TikTok with the sound playing out loud. The video shows various paparazzi shots of Preston and Chloe. They go in and out of high-end restaurants. They raise paddles at auctions. They hug at the airport. The voiceover is an exaggerated male voice commentating, "True love returns to the Sterling Group. Cinderella is finally kicked out. It seems the wealthy ultimately don't need a haggard woman who only knows how to work. I heard Mrs. Preston doesn't even have an Insta account. Boring to the extreme." The girl watched while interacting with the blogger in the video. Oh my God, that ex-wife is so pathetic. Heard she's a lawyer? Reading too many books really makes you stupid. What's the use if you can't keep a man's heart? I felt Barb's breathing instantly become heavy, like a volcano about to erupt. The girl turned her head, probably wanting to find someone to share the gossip, stared at me for a moment, then suddenly widened her eyes and covered her mouth. "Oh my God, sister, aren't you that—" She pointed at me, her finger trembling. "Are you Preston Sterling's wife?" Apparently, as the woman behind Preston, although I keep a low profile, I do occasionally leave a few blurry photos at certain occasions I'm forced to attend. In the photos, I'm always wearing black or gray business attire, my hair meticulously pinned in a bun at the back of my head, documents in hand, following half a step behind Preston, like a competent secretary. I was just about to speak. Barb slammed that can of beer heavily onto the tray table. The aluminum can made a loud bang, shaking the girl's headphones crooked. "Mrs. Who? That's Harper Vance." Barb's voice echoed through the entire first-class cabin. "She's the most powerful lawyer in all of Wisconsin. She's a top Yale graduate. She's my daughter. She's returning home in glory, and she doesn't give a rat's ass about that man who's good for nothing but money." The girl was startled and hurriedly shrank back into her seat, apologizing repeatedly. Sorry, I just saw what the video said." I took off my sunglasses, revealing a pair of eyes that were red and swollen but still sharp. I looked at that girl and smiled calmly. "It's okay. You're right. Mrs. Preston is a pitiful character. She's probably still in that cold apartment right now, keeping watch over an empty room, waiting for him to come home." I paused, straightened my back, and that aura of dominating the negotiation table instantly returned. "But I am Harper. I'm going home to eat cheese." The girl stared at me blankly, as if she was intimidated by my aura. I took out my phone and opened Instagram. I have a burner account specifically for monitoring public opinion. It's a lawyer habit. Chloe just posted a new story. The background was the master bathroom of Preston's apartment. That huge floor-to-ceiling window reflected her curvaceous figure, wrapped in nothing but a bath towel, and the bathtub was filled with water and rose petals. In the blurry distance, Preston's back was visible. He seemed to be sitting on the edge of the bed, loosening his tie. The caption was, "Some things, after all the twists and turns, finally belong to the right person. True love, unto Sterling." This was a naked provocation. She was staking her claim to me, telling me, "The home you spent 7 years building, your bed, your man, they're all mine now." I felt a wave of physical nausea, acid churning in my stomach. But I wasn't angry or sad like before. Sorrow is for those who still have expectations, whereas right now, I only had the professional instinct of a lawyer. Screenshot, save, back up to the cloud. Then I opened my contacts and found the name saved as Preston. Sent the picture, followed by a message that was terrifyingly calm. "Preston, although we signed a no-fault divorce agreement, this photo will be extremely helpful in the subsequent asset division negotiations to let that group of stuffy board members of yours, who care so much about family reputation, see just how lousy your risk management skills are. By the way, your bath towel is Italian-Egyptian cotton, $800 a piece. Remember to tell your guest not to get it dirty. I bought that. Finally, good luck in the days without me helping you review contracts." Sent successfully, blocked, all done in one smooth motion. After doing all this, I let out a long sigh of relief, as if a 1,000-pound burden had been lifted. Beautifully done. Barb had sidled up at some point and stuffed a handful of salty-as-hell beef jerky into my hand. "Eat up. You look skinny as a raccoon fresh out of winter. If we go back and that bunch of aunts and cousins sees you, they'll think I've been mistreating you." I chewed on the beef jerky. The saltiness spread through my mouth, but I could taste a hint of long-lost freedom. When the plane landed at Milwaukee Mitchell International Airport, it was already late at night. As soon as I stepped out of the cabin, that dry, cold air typical of the Midwest rushed over me, instantly freezing through my cashmere sweater. Yet it also sobered up my groggy brain quite a bit. Barb's Ford F-150 pickup, which she'd driven for 15 years, was parked in the lot, with a thick layer of snow still piled in the bed. "Get in! The heater's already warmed up." Barb tossed the luggage into the car, slammed on the gas, and the pickup let out a beast-like roar on the snow. It was a 2-hour drive, with pitch-black cornfields and snow-covered forests outside the window. Occasionally, we passed small towns lit with warm yellow lights, a tranquility you'd never see in Manhattan. By the time we got home, it was already 2 in the morning. It was a typical old Wisconsin house, wooden structure with a huge porch and snow piled up on the roof as thick as cream. As soon as we walked in, the heat hit us in the face. The fire in the fireplace was burning hot, wood crackling. There was no expensive minimalist furniture here, just floral sofas that were even a bit worn out, walls covered with photos of me and my brother growing up, and the mounted deer head Barb was so proud of. The air was filled with a scent that made you salivate like crazy, a mix of baked potatoes, melted cheese, onions, and cream of mushroom soup. Barb walked straight into the kitchen and brought out that huge baking dish that had been keeping warm in the oven for hours. "Here, eat while it's hot." She plopped a big spoonful of the golden, crispy food, pulling long strings of cheese onto my plate. "This is Wisconsin's god-tier food, tater tot hot dish. High calorie, high carb, completely going against all the healthy eating principles Preston advocated. Have some more." I glanced at the mountain of food on the plate, feeling a bit hesitant. Barb glared at me. "What? Turning your nose up at my cooking? Look at those wrists of yours, so thin I wouldn't dare squeeze them hard. Were you starving in New York? Does that Preston not feed you?" "He just eats too healthy." I picked up the spoon and stuffed a mouthful in. In that instant, the rich, milky aroma, the beef gravy and the crispiness of the tater tots exploded in my mouth. Tears suddenly started falling. To stay with him, I ate grass for 7 years. I ate while crying. Gluten-free, sugar-free, organic, low-cal, grass-fed. He said that's the only way to look like high society. What a sin. Barb rolled her eyes, pouring me a large glass of whole milk. If a living person doesn't eat meat or sugar, what's the difference between them and the dead? Here, don't just eat that. There are also freshly fried cheese curds, the kind that squeak when you bite them. I sat there on the old sofa wearing the flannel pajamas 2 sizes too big that Barb found for me, crying while stuffing my cheeks like a hamster. That night, I slept in my old room. The quilt smelled of sunshine, and outside the window was the sound of howling wind and snow. This was the first time in 3 months I'd fallen asleep without relying on sleeping pills. The next day, a once-in-a-decade blizzard locked down the entire town. I slept until the sun was high, woken by the roar of snow clearing. I wrapped myself in a thick blanket and walked to the window with my hot coffee. In the yard, the snow was already past my knees. A man in a work vest, revealing solid arms, was pushing a snowblower on the driveway. His back was broad as a wall, short blonde hair shining in the sunlight. It was Jake Kowalski, my high school classmate, the former football quarterback, that big lug who got into a fight at prom because a guy from the neighboring school team hit on me. He turned off the machine, took off his earmuffs, wiped the sweat from his forehead, turned around and saw me behind the window. In that moment, he froze. A flash of surprise passed through eyes as blue as Lake Michigan, followed by a flustered panic. "Hey, Harper!" he shouted through the window, his white breath fading in the cold air. "Barb said you were back. Thought I'd get your driveway cleared." I opened the door, the cold wind pouring in, but I didn't feel cold. "Morning, Jake. Thank you." Jake put down the shovel, standing somewhat awkwardly in the snow. He was even bulkier now than in high school, running the biggest construction company in town. Although he was blue-collar, he was still a big shot locally. "Are you okay?" he asked carefully, his eyes lingering on my face with inquiry and concern, but without any of that scrutinizing, goods-like pickiness of Preston's. "Barb said that New York guy bullied you." "I'm good." I smiled, and this time it was genuine. "I'm single now." Jake's face instantly turned red, even redder than the frostbite outside. He scratched the back of his head, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. That's perfect. If you want to build a house or tear down a house, or if you want to bury someone in the foundation, no, I mean anything that requires heavy lifting, just ask me for free." Just then, Barb rushed out carrying a plate of fresh-baked cinnamon rolls. "Jake, I knew it was you. Come in, fresh out of the oven. Come in and warm up. This girl just got back from fleeing New York. You can keep her company and chat with her. Don't mention that bastard ex-husband, it'll make her sick." And just like that, I was forced to sit on the rug with Jake, a plate of steaming hot cinnamon rolls between us. Jake wasn't as rough as I had imagined. He attentively grabbed a napkin for me, his gaze remaining warm and restrained the whole time. "Heard you're a big lawyer now." Jake took a sip of coffee. "Really amazing. I knew back then this small town couldn't hold you." "Nothing amazing about it." I smiled self-mockingly. "Just someone helping people clean up their messes." "No." Jake looked at me seriously. "Harper, you've always been amazing. Back when we were on the school debate team, you could leave that judge speechless. Back then, I felt like you were glowing." In that moment, it was as if a beam of sunlight shone into that corner of my heart that had been neglected and belittled for so long. In Preston's eyes, my ability was a tool. In Jake's eyes, my ability was light. Meanwhile, inside the penthouse on Central Park West in Manhattan, the air was freezing cold. Preston Sterling got wasted at a yacht party last night and didn't return home until noon with a hangover headache. He shouted out of habit, "Harper, get me a glass of honey water, add 2 slices of lemon. Water temperature needs to be 45 degrees. The only response was dead silence. He frowned as he walked into the living room, only to find it wasn't as tidy as he expected. On the coffee table sat the glass of whiskey he hadn't finished last night, the coaster lying askew. Harper would absolutely never allow this to happen. Then he saw that piece of paper. Separation agreement. And that abortion report. Preston froze. He picked up that report, his hand starting to tremble uncontrollably. Abortion. Yesterday. Flashback. Yesterday afternoon, Harper had called him. "Preston, my stomach hurts really bad. Can you come back and go to the hospital with me?" What was he doing at the time? He was with Chole, helping her pick out jewelry to wear to the dinner party. Chole said she saw a necklace that looked just like the one her late grandmother wore, and she was crying her eyes out. He told the person on the other end of the line, "I'm busy. Go by yourself." Damn it! Preston smashed his fist onto the priceless marble tabletop, his knuckles instantly bruising. A huge sense of panic struck him, not because he had lost the child, but because he had lost a sense of control. Harper was never like this. She was always the one waiting right there, handling every trouble. Just then, his phone started vibrating madly. It was his chief assistant, his voice choked with tears. "Mr. Sterling, something terrible has happened." "What are you making such a fuss about?" Preston roared irritably. "Tomorrow's final merger negotiation. The opposing lawyers suddenly attacked and seized on a loophole in the terms. The legal department is in a total mess. They said only Attorney Vance knows where that key risk avoidance clause is. Now the other side is demanding a revaluation, and we're going to lose at least $30 million. Then let the legal department solve it. What do I pay them all that money for? They can't handle it. Madam used to personally oversee all of this before. Also, the tax bureau just sent an inquiry letter saying there are issues with last year's charity fund accounts. The whereabouts of several donations are unknown. Madam used to be in charge of auditing this part too." Preston instantly broke into a cold sweat. And the assistant hesitated. About next week's charity gala, several of the directors' wives called asking why they can't reach Madam. They said if Madam has withdrawn from the preparatory committee, they won't be donating anymore and are even considering withdrawing their support for your re-election. Preston hung up the phone and slumped onto the sofa. Just then, the bedroom door opened. Chole walked out wearing that bath towel, which not only failed to anger Harper, but had instead become evidence in court, looking languid. "Honey, what's wrong? You look terrible." She hugged Preston from behind, drawing circles on his chest with her finger. "Isn't it perfect that that old hag is gone? We can start over, just the two of us." Preston stood up abruptly and shoved her away. Chole lost her balance and fell to the floor, looking at him in disbelief. You pushed me." "Shut up!" Preston looked at this face that once haunted his dreams, but at this moment he only felt that the face full of hyaluronic acid and the fake expression were nauseating. "Do you know who she is? She is Harper Vance. She is the only one who can handle that vampire board of directors. You think I've had smooth sailing these past few years because I'm naturally gifted. It's because of her. And you," Preston pointed at Chloe's nose. "Besides spending my money, besides causing me trouble, what else can you do? Do you know she just had a miscarriage? It's precisely because I had to accompany you, this idiot, to buy that damn necklace." Chole was stunned by the yelling, then immediately burst into tears. "You're yelling at me for a hen that can't lay eggs? Preston, you've changed." "Get out!" Preston roared. "Get out right now!" After kicking Chole out, Preston called Harper like a madman. "Sorry, the subscriber you dialed has added you to the blacklist." He then switched to the office phone, the assistant's phone, and even the driver's phone. All failed to connect. That woman who used to be on standby for him 24 hours a day had completely disappeared. During the week in Wisconsin, I wasn't just eating roasted dishes and watching the snow scenery. My body was recovering and my brain was also running at high speed. Although Mama Barb said she wanted me to rest, she specially cleared out her quiet study for me. I opened my laptop, connected to the internet, and began a silent slaughter. First, I handled the wife diplomacy that I'd been maintaining for ages. I sent emails to the few wives who held sway on the board of directors. The tone was proper and gentle, yet teeming with subtext. "Dear Mrs. Vander Woodson, I am terribly sorry that I can no longer assist you in preparing for next week's dinner party. Due to personal health reasons and changes in my marital status, I have left New York. Regarding the foundation tax optimization plan you mentioned last time, I have handed it over to Preston's assistant. Although I'm not sure if they are as familiar with those complex overseas trust clauses as I am, I believe Preston will do his best. Send." The subtext of this email was, "I'm done. Nobody's covering your tax issues anymore. That useless piece of trash, Preston can't handle it at all, so figure it out yourselves." In less than half an hour, my private inbox received a bombardment of replies. "Harper, how could you leave? That Preston can't even remember my dog's name." "Darling, what will we do without you? You're the only one we trust." Next, I contacted a few headhunting firms that had been trying to poach me. "Yes, this is Harper Vance. I'm considering leaving the Sterling Group, but I won't sign a non-compete agreement because that was unpaid labor based on a marital relationship. I am now accepting consulting work." The news spread like wildfire across Wall Street. Finally, I organized the chain of evidence regarding Preston's infidelity that I had in hand, including that photo Chloe sent, as well as the hotel bills and luxury spending records Preston paid for Chloe that I managed to dig up, which were paid using our joint account. Stupid beyond belief. I bundled these up and sent them to my divorce lawyer, the most vicious shark in all of New York, Jessica Pearson. "Jessica, it's impossible to make him leave with absolutely nothing. That's a family trust. But I'm going to skin him alive. I want back every cent of capital appreciation that belongs to me, plus damages for emotional distress." Jessica replied with a smiley face emoji. "Leave it to me. I'll let him know the consequences of pissing off a lawyer who understands M&A." After doing all this, I closed my laptop, picked up the hot cocoa Barb just brought in, and looked at the snowy scenery outside the window. Preston. The show has just begun. Preston came after all. Although I had cut off all contact, as long as he used a bit of his connections, it wouldn't be difficult to find Barb's address in Wisconsin. One afternoon a week later, the blizzard had just subsided. A black Lincoln Navigator, completely out of place in this world of ice and snow, obviously the most expensive car he could rent at the airport, stumbled its way into our small town. When he pulled up to the Vance house, Preston Sterling looked utterly wretched. He was wearing an expensive Burberry trench coat. In New York, this might be fashionable, but in minus 20-degree Wisconsin, this was basically suicide. He was also wearing those signature Italian handmade leather shoes. He was shivering from the cold, the tip of his nose was red, and his originally meticulously combed hair was blown into a mess by the wind. He stood at the door and rang the doorbell. It wasn't me who opened the door. It was Barb. She was holding a huge iron shovel used for clearing snow off the roof, and the look in her eyes was even harder than the iron thing in her hands. "You're that Preston." Barb narrowed her eyes, sizing up this man who looked like a drowned rat. "You look like a human being, so how come you don't act like one?" Ma'am, Preston's teeth chattered as he tried to squeeze out a charming smile. "I'm here to take Harper home. I have something very important to tell her." "Looking for who? Your wife isn't here, only my daughter." Barb thrust the shovel into the ground with a dull thud. "Besides, I don't see what makes you so important. Compared to the septic tank I just fixed, who the hell are you?" Preston was choked into silence, his face turning shades of green and white. "I am the president of the Sterling Group. I have the right to see my wife." "Out here, you're just a fool who doesn't even know how to put on snow chains," Barb sneered. Just then, I heard the commotion and walked out, wrapped in a wool shawl. Jake was right by my side, holding a cup of freshly mulled wine in his hand. Seeing this scene, Preston's eyes instantly turned red. It was jealousy. It was anger. It was offended dignity. "Harper!" he shouted, lunging forward a step, but stepped right into the snow by the roadside. Those leather shoes, worth thousands of dollars, were instantly ruined, and icy slush poured into his pant legs. "Damn it!" He pulled his foot out awkwardly. "Is this the reason you left me? For this hillbilly?" He pointed at Jake, his face full of scorn. "You gave up being the mistress of the Sterling family for this kind of guy who smells like motor oil? Gave up the Manhattan penthouse?" Jake raised an eyebrow. With his height of 1.92 meters, the muscles honed by years of physical labor filled out his work shirt like iron blocks. He put down the cup in his hand, walked leisurely down the steps, and stood in front of Preston. Preston subconsciously took a step back. This was a biological instinct, the fear when facing absolute strength. "I'm a hillbilly?" Jake laughed, his voice deep and resonant. "But at least I know that when your own woman is pregnant and unwell, you shouldn't be out drinking with other women. I also know you can't wear leather so." Preston was flustered and exasperated. He ignored Jake, trying to look past him at me. "Harper, come back with me. Stop making a scene. I know you're in a bad mood because of the miscarriage. We can find the best therapist. That merger case needs you. As long as you come back, I'll give you shares. 5%. No, 10%. And Chloe, I've already kicked her out. That woman is just useless trash. She can't compare to you at all. It's still you that I love the most." I stood on the porch, looking down at him from above, watching him struggle wretchedly in the snow, measuring my value with money and shares, trying to win me back by belittling another woman. Suddenly, I found it very amusing. This is the man I loved for 7 years. This is the domineering CEO I packaged as an elite in the business world. Stripped of that halo, he was nothing but a giant baby who couldn't survive without a nanny, a mercenary businessman, a coward through and through. "Preston, come in," I said indifferently. "Don't die at my doorstep. It's bad luck." Barb reluctantly stepped aside, muttering under her breath. Should have just let him freeze into an ice sculpture. In the living room, the fireplace was burning brightly. As soon as Preston entered, he tried to sidle up to me, but was calmly blocked by Jake. He could only stand awkwardly before the fireplace to warm himself, trying to dry his soaked trouser legs, the expensive fabric emitting a nasty scorch smell. "Harper, let's go home." Preston softened his tone. "I really know I was wrong. Without you these past few days, I simply can't go on. The company is a total mess. Those directors are staring at me like wolves. Only you can help me." I sat on the sofa holding the mulled wine Jake handed me, looking calm. "Preston, you still don't understand. First, I'm not making a scene. I'm notifying you. The separation agreement has already taken effect, and the divorce lawsuit will be formally submitted next week. Second, your merger deal getting messed up is your incompetence. It has nothing to do with me. I wrote down all the risk points clearly in the resignation handover documents. It was you who never looked at them, only caring about flirting with Chole." Preston got anxious. "But we are husband and wife. What's mine is yours." "Used to be," I interrupted him, "until you chose another woman when I needed you the most. That was an accident. Chole, she—" "Enough!" I slammed the cup onto the table. "Preston, do you know what it feels like to lie on the operating table? That coldness, that despair. In that moment, I swore, if I could survive, I would never shed another tear for you." I stood up and walked in front of him. "I don't love you anymore. Preston, in my eyes right now, you aren't even as valuable as that pile of snow Jake just helped me shovel away." Preston froze. He had never seen me so resolute. In his mind, Harper was always that gentle, rational woman who would always forgive him. "No, impossible," he muttered, suddenly looking ferocious. "Is it because of money? How much do you want? Or is it because of this man? Have you two been hooking up all along?" He pointed at Jake, blurting out, "I knew it! You've been hiding here these past few days just to be with this—" Smack! The crisp sound of a slap echoed through the living room. I wasn't the one who slapped. It was Barb. She had walked over at some point, still holding that iron snow shovel in her hand, though of course she used her hand to hit. "Watch your mouth!" Barb glared, eyes wide with rage. "This is my house. If you dare slander my daughter one more time, I'll let you taste a Wisconsin shovel." Preston clutched his face, looking at this tough old woman in disbelief. "Ope, I can't listen to this anymore." Barb slammed the shovel onto the ground. "Kid, I'll give you 3 seconds to get out of my house. Otherwise, I'm going to dump this shovel full of snow inside that crappy rental car of yours. 1, 2... Preston glanced at the glaring Jake, then at Barb holding the shovel, and finally at me, looking cold. He finally realized, this isn't Manhattan. No one here buys his act. He gritted his teeth, turned around, and charged into the wind and snow. Watching that Lincoln skid in the snow and finally flee in a pathetic state, the three of us stood before the window. Barb snorted coldly. "What a piece of trash." Jake gently placed his hand on my shoulder. "If you want to cry, you can borrow my shoulder." I shook my head, turned around, and looked at this room full of warmth. "No, I want some cinnamon rolls." After that snow, my divorce proceedings with Preston went very quickly. His ordeal in Wisconsin completely shattered his arrogance. Coupled with Jessica Pearson's ruthless legal offensive and the evidence I held of him embezzling funds to spend on Chole, Preston didn't dare fight me head-on. To save his precarious position on the board, he agreed to all my terms. I received an 8-figure settlement, as well as options in 2 of the Sterling Group's most promising subsidiaries. This was what I deserved. The moment Preston finished signing, he looked as if he had aged 10 years. Preston without me was like a ship without a navigation system. That merger ultimately failed completely, and the Sterling Group paid huge fines for it, causing the stock price to plummet. The board launched an internal investigation, and although Preston barely kept his position, his power had been hollowed out, making him a puppet in name only. And Chloe Kensington? When she realized Preston was no longer an ATM she could swipe endlessly from and was even facing the risk of bankruptcy, she ran faster than anyone. I saw her ending in the tabloids. She married a retired Florida real estate developer who was pushing 70. That old guy was covered in liver spots, had been married 4 times, and had 4 kids older than Chloe. In the photo, Chloe's smile looked forced, and her eyes were full of exhaustion. As for me, 6 months later, I opened my own boutique law firm, Vance and Partners, in Chicago's busiest district, the Loop. On opening day, all the political and business elites of Chicago showed up. Ironically, my biggest client base turned out to be the wealthy wives from Preston's old circle. They were fed up with the arrogance and stupidity of the men in that circle, and one after another, they handed over their private trusts and divorce cases to me. Only Harper gets us. That was their verdict. Now, wearing a well-tailored Armani suit, I stand before the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. I'm no longer someone's wife. I am Harper Vance. On weekends, I fly back to Wisconsin. Mama Barb still nags that I work too hard, then serves me a huge plate of high-calorie roasted food and forces me to finish it. And that blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jake, warm as a bear, is waiting for me at the door in his pickup truck. "Hey, big lawyer!" Jake leaned against thee. I took off my high heels, changed into comfortable snow boots, and hopped into the passenger seat. "You betcha." The car drove toward the open road, country music playing inside. I turned to look at Jake. He was humming along with the music. Sensing my gaze, he turned his head and gave me a beaming smile. This is the life. This is the life Harper Vance was meant to have.